Hello, my name is Audrey Vacha, and thank you for joining us at Create It for your next crochet project, this little beginner crochet bumblebee. So this kit will come with everything that you need to make the bee. It has the gray yarn you'll use for the wings, black and yellow yarn you will use for the body and the head, and then it comes with a 4mm crochet hook. Now we highly recommend you use this specific hook because even if the other hook you use is 4mm, the results may vary. So it would make the layering either too tight or too loose. So use this crochet hook, and then a plastic little needle for sewing all of your sections together at the end and forming the antennae. And then of course the instructions. So this bee is created with 4 simple steps. You're going to make the chain, you're going to grow your rectangles, you're going to connect your rectangles, and then you're going to sew your sections together at the end and form the antennae. Now, because this is a beginner pattern, I will take some time here to explain and teach you how each stitch is done, as well as work through each of the 4 steps, and so that you can successfully make your little bumblebee friend. So the first part of any crochet project is to get a slip knot onto your hook. So I will show you how to do that here. I am starting with the gray yarn just because black yarn, it can be difficult to see your stitches. So if you're a beginner, I also recommend that you start with the wings. Also, the yarn that is supplied with this kit is center pole ball yarn, which means you can just find the edge of your yarn and pull from the center to reduce tangling as you go. But if you can't find it, just go ahead and use the end that's wrapped around the sides, and that will work as well. So to begin a slip knot is you grab the yarn tail, the end of the yarn, with your middle finger and your thumb. And you hold it like that. And then see the working yarn, which is connected to the yarn ball, is over to the right. And you're going to loop it around your index finger to form an X. And then what I do is I just grab that X with my thumb, and I insert the hook, and I pull that working yarn through. And once it's pulled through, you can let go of all the yarn, pull both sides. And because it's a slip knot, it's designed so that it can get loose or tight as much as you want. So I'll show that to you again. The working yarn is over to the left. The yarn end is over to the, the working yarn is over to the right. The end of the yarn is to the left. And you can leave about 3 inches is about what I do. And I grab onto it with my middle finger and my thumb. I wrap it around my pointer finger to form the X. And then I grab it with my thumb. If you don't even want to grab it with your thumb, you can just kind of leave it like this. Make sure that your yarn tail is underneath that working yarn, and there's this wide loop here. And you could even take your fingers like a little alligator, pull them through, grab that working yarn, and pull your loop through. And that is your slip knot. Then you can go ahead and put it onto your hook, and you are ready to start your project. So once you have the slip knot on your hook, you're ready to learn your first crochet stitch, which is the chain stitch. So first I'll show you how I hold my hook and my yarn. Now there's many ways to do this, but I'll teach you the way I do it. I hold my hook like I'm holding a knife with my thumb on that flat area, and then I grab my working yarn. Note that you grab the yarn that's connected to the yarn ball, not this little tail if your tail happens to be longer. And then I go like I'm pointing, and I grab that yarn, my 3 fingers, and I wrap it around my pointer finger. And then with my middle finger and my thumb, I grab that knot. So I grab the little slip knot right here. And the reason I grab the slip knot is because it's a slip knot, it can get very tight, which is very difficult for beginners because then you can't really get the yarn through that because it's too tight. So if you want to loosen it up, just have it go over that flat section and then hold onto it with your thumb and your middle finger. So no matter how hard you're pulling, that's still a loose knot on your hook. And then you're going to do your first yarn over, which all that means is you're going to have your hook head face your left hand. You're going to put it to the left of that yarn, the working yarn, and you're going to push into that working yarn, making that working yarn go above your hook, a yarn over your hook. And then you're just going to pull that yarn through your slip knot. And that is your first chain. Now I'm going to move my middle finger and my thumb back up to hold on to this first chain to prevent this from getting too loose or too tight. I'm going to grab onto it, and I'm going to just yarn over again and pull through. I rearrange my thumb and my middle finger, pull through. That's 3 chains, 4 chains, 5 chains, 6 chains. So that is your foundation row. I'll show that all again in slow motion. So I'm making my slip knot. Then I'm going to make my first 1 chain, 2 chain, 3 chain, 4 chain, 5 chain, 6 chain. And there is my foundation row. So once you are done with your chain, that means you can start growing your rectangles, which is just, we're going to do single crochet stitches back and forth until we grow our rectangle. So to do a single crochet, you're going to crochet into the chain. And what I mean by that is, as you can see, each one of these V's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is one of the chains. And if you turn it around, there's this line of bumps. So there's 6 little bumps here. Each one of those is a chain. And with single crochet, you crochet into the second chain from the hook. So we're going to insert it into that bump. Now, if you can't do this exactly, I wouldn't get stuck at this point. Just make sure that at the end of this row, you have 5 stitches. It doesn't have to be exactly into each one of the bumps. As you crochet more, you'll get more used to the step and it'll just become a cleaner look. So once it's into the chain, you're going to yarn over like before and pull it through that first loop. And then you're going to yarn over again and pull it through both loops. And that's your first single crochet. And then you're going to go into the second bump, which is this one. Going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through into the third bump. And if you notice, I'm grabbing with my thumb and my middle finger again to make sure that these don't get too tight onto the hook, so that when I yarn over and pull through, I can kind of pull through easily without those loops being too tight. So I'm always moving where my middle finger and my thumb are to kind of stabilize those stitches. Yarn over, pull through both. 2 more. Put it into the back bump, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. The last one, the last bump. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. And that is your first row. Now to grow your rows, you're just going to chain 1 like before. So you're going to yarn over, pull through, that's your chain 1, and then you're going to flip your work, just like so. And you're going to work down that row, just like you worked down the chain. Except now you're working into those stitches. So see the 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you chained 1, insert it into the hook. So you're going through both of these little V's. Going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. And you're just going to continue to grow your rows for however long the rectangle you're working on calls for. Now it can be kind of easy to lose track of the beginning and end stitches. So every now and then as you're going, I would recommend that you just, when you finish a row, make sure that there's still 5 stitches along that row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that you haven't dropped an edge to keep it more even. And so this first So here is the first rectangle done, the rectangle A for the wings. So you can either count your rows as you do them and mark them down with a pen and paper, or just keep them in your head, or you can freely crochet and then count periodically to see what row you're on. And that is what I do, and I'll give you a tip on how to do that. So when your yarn tail and your working yarn are on opposite ends of your rectangle, that means you've done an even amount of rows. And then when you crochet, the stitches have a different texture, whether they're worked on the back or the front. And so what I do is I find the little line of ridged bumps, kind of like the back of the chain, where it is. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means every other row there was this ridged bump, which means I've done 10 rows. So that's how I know that I've done 10 rows for this rectangle. And when you complete a rectangle, you can either start directly layering your rectangles, which is what I like to do, and then grow your bee as you go, or you can cut leaving a very long yarn tail about 18 inches wide that you will then use for your connecting. But I like to, once I finish a rectangle, fold it, layer it, and then start my new rectangle. So to do that, I will show you. You're going to chain one like you were just going to turn your work like any other row, and you're going to insert that hook into your first stitch. But then you're going to curve up your rectangle and insert that hook into the first stitch of your bottom row, your chain foundation row, essentially. So that's why we worked into the back bump, was so that this V is clearly seeable. If you're a beginner or you just can't quite see it, what will be important is just to make sure you have 5 single crochet stitches going across this top to connect these 2 layers. And you're just going to do single crochet like you would any other time. Yarn over, pull it through the loops, yarn over, pull it through both. And you're going to do 5 of these down the line. Once you've finished, you can cut your yarn and tie off. So how I do this is I just do a little chain stitch. So I pull the yarn through, and then I cut the yarn and pull that through. So that makes a little knot right there. And then you can tie these 2 ends together. I double knot them together. And then I just take my needle and I insert it down into that row I just did. Pull the yarn through, cut the yarn, kind of straighten that out, and the yarn is hidden. And that is your first folded A rectangle. Now for the sake of this video, I just went ahead and made the next 2 rectangles for the wings. So this one is 20 rows long. If you want to count the rows, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which means there's 20 rows altogether, and the working yarn and the yarn tail are on opposite sides. And then this one is the 30 rows. So how you start layering is you take your next longest rectangle, and just like you were going to do any other row, you chain 1, insert that hook into the first stitch, and then you're going to grab your smaller rectangle and you're going to insert it into the first stitch at the top. So the first connecting stitch of that row, and then you're going to turn over your rectangle to loop it around. So now you're connecting 3 you're going through 3 layers essentially. You're going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Onto the next stitch. And again, if this isn't exact, I'd say just move on. You'll get better as you go, as long as there are 5 stitches at the top of each of these connecting layers. There we go. And since the yarn is already cut, I'm just going to chain 1 and pull all the way through. And tie these 2 yarn tails together, double knot. Take my needle, insert it into the row I just did. You can see it through there. Then I just pull the yarn through and I will cut it. Out, so the yarn tail's lost. And then now for the 3rd rectangle, if you're doing the smaller wings, your smallest wing is already done, because the only difference between the smallest wings and the bigger wings is this 3rd rectangle. So again, you're going to take it just like you would do any other row, chain 1, insert it into that first stitch, insert it into the first stitch of what you just did, wrap this around, first stitch here, and do your 5 single crochets down, going through those 3 layers again. Pull it through. So that is your first large wing done. Now I went ahead and finished the other wings. So here's the second large wing and the two little wings. And at the end, once we are done with the head and the body, we are going to sew them all together with your needle. Now we are going to start on the body, so we will start with the black yarn. And as you'll see, it'll be a little bit harder to see what I'm doing, but I'm just going to show you the first rectangle of the bee, and then, like I did for the wings, I'll just show you the layering. So I'm going to do my slip knot. I'm going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to turn my chain, so I see those back bumps. I'm going to do the second bump from the chain. If you're getting caught up in this, then count from your tail the bumps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you'll go into that fifth one. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. 1, 2, 3. A bit of a tangle there. 4 and 5. That's your first row. I'm going to chain 1, turn, so this is the first rectangle for the bee. So I have my 4 rows. I'm going to chain 1, insert it into the first stitch, turn up that rectangle, so I'm kind of folding it. I'm going to connect the 2 sides, the bottom and the top of that rectangle, by doing 5 single crochets across the 2 layers. So get to the end, do a chain, cut the yarn, pull through, tie these 2 yarn tails together. Take my needle. Now if I was doing this, I would go on to making my rectangle B, and I'd layer it, then I'd go to my rectangle C and layer it. But because of this video, I've just pre-made all of the other rectangles, so I'll show you how we layer them now. So here is all the finished rectangles of the bee. So it goes 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, and 40 rows. As you can see, they start twirling. That's fine, because once you start layering it, they'll kind of stretch out and they'll keep their shape better. So you'll move on to your next smallest rectangle, chain 1, and just like you did with the wings, I'm going to insert it into the first stitch on the top of rectangle B, the first stitch of the connecting of rectangle A, and the foundation stitch of your rectangle B. And you're just going to connect the 3 layers by single crocheting down. Now, unlike the wings, this layering is going to be a bit more tighter, because as you can see, the final bee, we don't want this layering to be too loose that it doesn't keep its form. And so that's why when you're layering, it's going to be a bit tighter, where the wings, it was nice and airy to give that wing the little airy feeling. I'm going to tie these together. beginning of your bee body. Then you're going to grab rectangle C. This will be easier to see because it's the yellow. So you have your chain or your rectangle with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the rows of the little bumps. So that means there's 12 rows altogether. You're going to chain 1, insert it into the first, insert here. So you can see clearly those 3 layers. So there's the top, the connecting row, and the bottom. So if as you're layering, it becomes a little too difficult to cinch the 3 layers together as you crochet, your tension might be harder than me, so that there's not as much stretch. Or for whatever reason, you can always use a stitch marker and just kind of connect those together at the end to hold them as you go. Or you could just use your needle and tie a little knot, or even use this tail. Just kind of pull it through. It'll kind of cinch it for you while you complete this row. Remember to take your time, and it doesn't have to be exact, just as long as there is 5 connecting single crochet stitches at the top, connecting the 3 layers. That's all you need. It'll just be a cleaner finish if it's through 5 of those stitches from the previous rows. So here we are with our finished bee body. If you want to just like pull out some layers, you can use your needle to kind of make that yellow pop more, or the black pop, whatever you think is needed. And then we are done with the wings and the body. And all we have yet to do is finish the head, and then we'll be able to connect it all together. So I've gone ahead and completed all the rectangles we would need for the head. So it's 4, 8, 12, 16, and 32 rows. Now, as a note, this 32 row rectangle is what we'll use to create the antennae, because we'll use the slack to form the antennae. And we sew the center of this rectangle to the top of the head. And so to make this easier for myself when the time comes, I'm going to mark the 16th row. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. I'm just counting that, the line of bumps again. I'm just going to mark with my yellow yarn that row, so when it comes to the antennae, I'll know where to sew it onto the head. And I'll do my layering and meet you back. So here is the finished layered head. As you can see, there is a lot of slack in this 13-inch rectangle, because that's what we will use to create the antennae. And you can see where I left my little mark. Now you're going to do this step with the black yarn, but I'm going to use yellow just so you can more clearly see what I'm doing. But remember, you will be using black. So I found my middle stitch, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to insert it by going through the longest rectangle and then a little bit of the head. I'm just going to pull through to connect them together. And then I'm just going to get rid of this extra I had. You can get rid of your little marker. I'm just going to continue to do that and connect the top of the 13 row onto the head. This isn't like an exact science, just do it however you find the simplest. This is how I do it. Going through a little bit, the top rectangle and the head. Kind of loop it around to make it tight. And then with both sides, I'm going to kind of lift up to form the antennae. And kind of eyeball it the way you like your antennae. You can pull up a lot to make really tall ones, or a little bit, kind of up to your creative decision. I kind of like it like this, so I'm going to keep holding on to this one as I tie the base of that antennae down. And then I'm going to go along the edge, making it so that it keeps its shape. Turn it over, get to this side, do an extra loop. And that is the first antennae. And I'm going to go over to this side, find it kind of what I like it, and then sew the base again. And go along the bottom. Side. See how it kind of holds antennae up. If you want, you can go up to the top and kind of sew along the top so that it keeps this from being more bubbly and keeps it kind of cinched down. It's up to you. Now you'll be using black yarn, so you won't be able to be seeing any of these stitches. And you can go and do this one to kind of keep it tighter. And then when you've got to your antennae to kind of the shape you like it, you can just bury your yarn in the head and cut. And that yarn will just kind of be buried. And then same with this side. Buried inside the head, cut, push it in. And there is your completed head. We are at our last step, which will be to sew all of these sections together to form the bee. You can see it in this graph. We're just going to kind of go around in a circle 5 times, moving 1 stitch up each time. Now you're going to use black or gray yarn, but I'm going to use yellow just so that you can see what I'm doing better. I'm just going to go at the base of each cluster. I'm going to sew it. Now leave about 5 inches here, because when we're done with our spiral, we're going to pull the bottom and the top together to kind of cinch it together. So the first stitch of each section. So that is my first spiral. Getting all tangled because I'm just trying to show you what I'm doing, but you can do it on your lap or however you find it easiest. Going through the second of the bottom of each section. Make sure that your wings, the smaller wings, are at the bottom. I've done this before where they were flipped and then I just had to redo this sewing section. So now I'm on the 3rd from the bottom of each section. So I'm at my 4th rotation. And now my final rotation, so I'm at the top stitch of each section. There we go. So this, sorry, bump this. So this is the top, and then I'm going to just find that bottom. Here it is. So I'm going to pull the bottom a little bit and cinching it together. Flip it. I'm going to pull the top, cinching it together. And then you can just kind of pull them at the same time. Bring one of them up and double knot. And there your bee is all put together. You can cut your yarn. And note this will be black or gray yarn, so you can just bury it. If it's black yarn, you can bury it into the head. If it was gray, you could bury it into one of the wings. You're just going to insert your hook. Bury your yarn. Cut it. And there is your final little bee. You can either pinch the wings if you like kind of a more sharp wing look, or make them friendly. This is the original bee I made. And there you go. Good job. Thanks for joining us.